Chapter 1. What's in my backpack? My backpack. I was primarily raised by my fierce and determined Latina mother. I grew up witnessing the harsh realities of a life filled with obstacles and hardships. I grew up in a world that often felt unkind and unforgiving. A young boy of color, born to teenage parents struggling to find their way. My parents were high school dropouts and did their best to provide for their children. But we relied on government assistance and food stamps to make ends meet. I often felt the weight of judgmental stares from strangers as my mother used the colorful government-provided food stamps at the grocery store checkout, a silent reminder of the barriers that society placed upon me, my family, and people like us. Even with government assistance, our struggles often persisted. No matter how hard my mom worked, we had to heat our home a few times using a gas oven because the electricity was out. The government assistance often provided is barely enough for far too many, and sometimes more is needed. I grew up knowing what it was like to get Christmas gifts from the Salvation Army. I remember it like it was yesterday, looking at the big-name clothes and sneakers, not choosing what I really wanted, because we did not always have. I did not want to add to the burden my parents shouldered. The schools I attended were underfunded and lacked resources. Yet, I persevered. In the 6th grade, I faced the inconsistency of having 4 different teachers throughout the year, but still achieved straight A's. Despite my academic success, I was met with disbelief by those who were supposed to praise and support me when I scored high on a state math test, only to be placed in a transitional class rather than an honors class. With no computer at home and limited access to technology at school, into my teen years, I relied on borrowed encyclopedias from a kind neighbor who had acquired them through a payment plan and old, outdated books. As I grew older, I remained unaware of the possibilities that higher education could offer. No one I could remember at school had ever mentioned the prospect of college or how I could pay for it. Eventually, I enrolled in community college, only to be placed in remedial courses. This further fueled my frustration with the educational system. Growing up poor, I had no genuine concept of making a livable wage. I only knew what I needed to keep surviving. To me, surviving was good enough. The minute I got what I thought was a real job, with the frustration of a failed system pushing me, I dropped out of college only months after I started. After 10 years had passed and the birth of my first son, I decided to rewrite my story. I returned to school and earned a bachelor's degree, then left a comfortable tech job to give back to the school district that had failed to recognize and instill in me my potential. Driven by a desire to show other children like me that they could achieve, the college dropout earned 2 master's degrees and then a doctor of education in curriculum and instruction, graduating summa cum laude. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to succeed despite the challenges. I consider myself one of the lucky ones. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come, and I know that my experiences have made me stronger and more resilient. I could not wish my struggle on anyone. The story of my struggle sometimes ends differently for others than my story. I know people whose stories were similar, better, and worse, who did not make it. Many of my friends and neighbors did not escape poverty and still rely on the failed system today. They say it takes a village, and I was lucky to have educators and mentors around me who understood the assignment. The system, more than not, fails people like me. Many of our students are walking around with the heavy weight brought on by the bricks of adversity in their backpacks. They carry this extra weight around them all day. My personal and professional experiences are reinforced by the research that shows that students often mask their pain, frustration, and anxiety with walls of aggression, substance abuse, risk-taking behaviors, withdrawal, and disrespectful behaviors. Schwartz et al., 2012. Turner and Butler, 2003. Eunice, McClellan, and Yates, 1997. As educators, we must not add to our students' adversities. Still, we should look to lighten and liberate them, of their burdens whenever we can. What do our students carry in their backpacks? In pursuit of academic excellence, marginalized students are confronted by a labyrinth of external and internal challenges, which often intertwine to create an impenetrable barrier to success. Envision these challenges as burdensome bricks carried within our students' backpacks, with some bearing a heavier load than their peers, weighed down in the race for achievement. As educators, we must confront the harsh reality that, while our hearts may yearn to alleviate the weighty burdens our students bear, there are times when such a task transcends our capabilities. This book was not composed to mandate the removal of their burdens, though our moral compass implores us to do so when possible. Instead, it serves as an impassioned plea for educators to acknowledge our students' struggles and diligently ensure that we do not inadvertently add our bricks to their heavy backpacks. That we take the time to understand these challenges and do what we can to help them succeed in the light of them. External challenges. Lack of resources. Marginalized students may not have access to the same resources as their wealthier peers, such as private tutoring, advanced textbooks, or expansive technology. This can put them at a disadvantage in terms of academic achievement. Inadequate schooling. Schools in low-income areas are often underfunded and understaffed, resulting in less access to quality education. This can lead to lower test scores, less college preparedness, and fewer advanced coursework opportunities. Discrimination. Students of color may experience discrimination based on race or ethnicity, impacting their academic performance. They may also face implicit biases from educators and peers, resulting in lower expectations and fewer opportunities. Sometimes discrimination stems from friend and family relations. Internal challenges. Stereotype threat. Marginalized students may feel pressure to live up to negative stereotypes, often associated with their race, ethnicity, or familial. This can lead to anxiety, which can negatively impact academic performance. Self-doubt. Marginalized students may doubt their ability to succeed academically, especially if they don't see others like themselves achieving at high levels. This can lead to a lack of motivation and lower academic performance. Lack of support. Students who are often marginalized may have different levels of support from their families and communities than their peers. This can result in a lack of resources, mentoring, and guidance, making it harder for them to succeed academically. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. Marginalized students are more likely to experience ACEs, which can have a negative impact on their academic achievement. ACEs include poverty, violence, and neglect, leading to toxic stress, changes in brain development, and behavioral and emotional problems. These experiences can make it more difficult for students to learn and succeed in school. English language learners, ELLs. Marginalized students may also experience challenges when learning English as a second language, ESL. ELLs often face additional barriers to academic success compared to their native English-speaking peers. The struggles marginalized students endure in their quest for academic success demand on a kaleidoscope of solutions as multifaceted as the challenges themselves. Our response must encompass the enhancement of educational access and the dismantling of discrimination and prejudice. We must foster mentorship and support, cultivate resilience through trauma-informed practices, and champion mental health services. Additionally, we must strive to reshape societal perspectives and forge havens of safety and encouragement for these students. Attempting to resolve a single issue is akin to driving with a solitary wheel in motion. It may propel us forward, but can we truly reach our desired destination with the urgency these students deserve? Lack of resources. Marginalized students often need access to resources that can support their academic achievement. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, 2021, Students from low-income families are less likely to have access to resources such as high-quality preschool programs, advanced coursework, and technology. In addition, they may lack access to essential resources such as adequate nutrition, healthcare, and stable housing, which can also impact their academic success. Addressing the lack of resources among marginalized students requires a comprehensive approach that addresses the underlying causes of poverty and supports affected students. This can include policy interventions, such as increasing funding for schools in low-income areas and expanding access to early childhood education programs. National Academics of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine, 2019. It can also involve providing resources and support within schools, such as free or reduced-priced meals, tutoring and mentoring programs, and access to technology and other educational resources. Whatever approach is taken should be done with our students in mind and with the intention of meeting them where they are. Some of our neediest students are unable to participate in tutoring services because they have to work, so their families can pay essential bills, including the food they eat. Sometimes they have to take care of younger siblings because mom and/or dad have 2 or 3 jobs. In this case, tutoring directly before or after school would be an example of a solution that does not meet their needs. Additionally, schools must create a culture of inclusivity and support that recognizes marginalized students' unique challenges. This can involve adapting culturally responsive instructional practices and providing professional development for educators in addressing issues of equity and social justice in the classroom. Garcia, 2017. The approach chosen should not be a one-and-done event. It needs to be a process that happens over time and is ever evolving. Inadequate schooling. Students who belong to marginalized communities are frequently subjected to substandard schooling, which can have an adverse effect on their academic performance. The report from the National Center for Education Statistics, 2021, says that schools in low-income areas have fewer resources and experienced educators, as well as higher rates of teacher turnover. High teacher turnover rates result in large classes. Even when our students sit in front of a substitute for weeks or months, the substitutes usually have little to no adequate content knowledge. This can result in ineffective instruction, lower academic standards, and a lack of support from our students. Addressing inadequate schooling for marginalized students requires a comprehensive approach that addresses the underlying causes of educational inequity and supports our students. One part of the approach is providing additional resources to schools in low-income areas, such as funding technology and instructional materials and increasing teacher salaries to attract and retain experienced educators. National Academics of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine, 2019. In addition, schools can implement evidence-based interventions such as high-quality early childhood education programs and after-school programs that provide academic and social support for students. Duncan and Magnuson, 2013. Investing in programs to recruit and retain teachers must also be a priority, especially trying to recruit teachers who look like our students. Another strategy is to provide targeted support for our students who are most at risk of falling behind, such as English language learners, ELLs, and our students with disabilities. This can involve providing additional resources such as language support services, special education services, and individualized tutoring and mentoring. National Center for Education Statistics, 2021. Providing support through information and workshops to our families with these students is also essential. Support from a family can sometimes mean that families do not have to be able to help with the content being taught. Sometimes sufficient support comes from just checking in with our students, but this is not widely known. Schools can work to create a culture of high expectations and support for all students. This can involve adopting evidence-based practices such as differentiated instruction, in addition to the culturally responsive instructional practices addressed early. Adopting these practices must include a professional development series for staff to be well-versed in these practices. Discrimination. Our marginalized students also face discrimination, which can impede their academic performance, leading to adverse outcomes. Discrimination can take many forms, such as racial or ethnic bias, economic discrimination, religious discrimination, or discrimination based on gender or sexual orientation. A little-known form of discrimination is familial discrimination for students who are friends or relatives of previously known students. I have witnessed how a student having the same last name as another can trigger discrimination in school staff. According to a report from the National Center for Education Statistics, 2021, students from low-income families are more likely to experience discrimination and bias from their peers and educators. Addressing discrimination among marginalized students requires an intricate approach that addresses systemic inequality, creates a culture of inclusivity and respect within schools, and provides targeted support for affected students. One direction is to provide training and support for teachers and school administrators on addressing equity and social justice issues in the classroom, such as adopting culturally responsive instructional practices and supporting students experiencing discrimination or bias. Gorski, 2017. This approach requires more than just learning certain practices and implementing them. It requires a look into the mirror to gain a deep understanding of our own biases. Another approach is to create safe and inclusive learning environments that promote diversity and respect for all students. Additionally, the approach should involve implementing anti-bullying policies and providing opportunities for our students to learn about different cultures and perspectives. National Center for Education Statistics 2021. Schools can also work to create supportive networks for marginalized students, such as mentorship programs and peer support groups. More times than not, an intentional educational approach is non-existent when it is all that is needed. Addressing discrimination among marginalized students requires addressing systemic inequality and promoting policies that support economic and social mobility. Advocacy efforts can focus on addressing the root cause of poverty and inequality, including inadequate housing, limited access to healthcare, and low-quality education. Creating partnerships between the school and other entities can be a great way to strengthen advocacy and get the resources needed for systemic change. Stereotype threat. Marginalized students may also experience stereotype threat, the fear of being judged or mistreated based on a negative stereotype. Stereotype threat can lead to reduced academic performance, increased stress and anxiety, and lower academic aspirations. Steele, 1997. Addressing stereotype threats among marginalized students requires creating a supportive and inclusive learning environment that promotes a growth mindset and values diversity. According to a study by Walton and Cohen, 2011, interventions that promote a growth mindset can help reduce stereotype threat and improve academic performance among low-income students. One approach is to provide our students with opportunities to learn about and discuss stereotype threat and strategies for managing it. For example, educators can incorporate lessons on stereotype threat and growth mindset into their curriculum and provide students with tools for managing stress and anxiety. Cohen et al., 2009. Like the other challenges students face, creating a supportive and inclusive classroom environment that values diversity and promotes positive social identity is needed. By creating a culture that celebrates the diversity of our students, educators can help to mitigate the effects of stereotype threat. A study by Cohen et al., 2006, found that when students perceived their school environment as supportive of diversity, they were less likely to experience stereotype threat. Students can be encouraged to engage in positive self-affirmation exercises, such as writing about their personal values or strengths, to reduce negative stereotypes' impact on their academic performance. The same study by Cohen et al., 2006, found that self-affirmation exercises help to minimize the adverse effects of stereotype threat on academic performance. Another way to address stereotype threat by boosting social identity is for schools to provide positive role models for our students from marginalized groups. A study by Good et al., 2012, found that exposure to successful role models from one's ethnic group helped to reduce the effects of stereotype threat on academic performance. By highlighting the achievements of individuals from diverse backgrounds, educators can help to counter negative stereotypes and inspire our students to achieve their goals. Self-doubt. Marginalized students may experience self-doubt, negatively affecting their academic performance and overall well-being. Self-doubt can arise from various factors, including a lack of confidence in their abilities, negative experience or feedback, and comparison with peers, who may have more resources or advantages. Cassidy and Johnson, 2002. Educators can often exacerbate this through microaggressions that are intentional and unintentional. Providing our students with opportunities for positive feedback, mentorship, and skill building is vital to addressing self-doubt among marginalized students. According to a study by Dweck 2006, promoting a growth mindset can help students develop a more positive attitude toward learning and overcome self-doubt. One approach is providing our students with regular feedback and encouragement, highlighting their strengths and progress. This can involve providing specific and constructive feedback on their assignments and acknowledging their efforts and achievements in class. Cassidy and Johnson, 2002. Emphasizing the importance of effort and persistence can significantly reduce self-doubt. This can involve providing students with opportunities to develop their skills and interests and encouraging them to view challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning. Dweck, 2006. Another approach is to provide our students with mentorship and role models who can provide guidance and support. For example, schools can partner with community organizations or businesses to provide students with mentorship opportunities or offer programs that connect students with successful alums or professionals in their fields of interest. Bettinger and Baker, 2011. It is not enough for our students to see people who look like them in the curriculum. Developing authentic relationships with mentors who look like them strengthens the positive perception they need to reduce self-doubt. Lack of support. Marginalized may lack support from their families and communities, negatively impacting their academic achievement and well-being. Lack of support can arise from various factors, including limited access to academic and emotional resources and a lack of supportive relationships with family and peers. Kim and Huang, 2018. It is vital to give marginalized students access to more than just academic resources to address the lack of support among marginalized students. We must also give them emotional resources and opportunities to have supportive relationships. Schools can and often provide academic support through tutoring programs, study groups, and access to high-quality, up-to-date educational resources such as textbooks and technology. Kim and Huang, 2018. Our students can also be given something a little more. We can provide them with emotional support through counseling services, mental health programs, and peer support groups. Kim and Huang, 2018. Without the assistance of the school or district, our marginalized students do not always have access to these services. Family and community involvement also play crucial roles in supporting marginalized students' backgrounds. Schools can involve families and community members in the educational process by organizing parent-teacher conferences, community engagement events, and volunteer opportunities. Kim and Huang, 2018. These efforts can create a more supportive and connected environment for marginalized students. They can also allow our students to express themselves and feel valued. Enabling students to exhibit their learning and acquire knowledge together with their family members demonstrates that they are valued. This approach also allows families to provide support beyond the conventional report card nights. Often, families are unsure how they can support their students. Addressing the lack of support among marginalized students requires recognizing and addressing the systemic barriers that contribute to educational inequality. Advocating for policies that promote equity and access to resources, such as increased funding for low-income schools and programs that support the needs of marginalized students. Reardon, 2011. If we do not invest in our students as children, it will cost us more when they are adults. Think of all the innovation and knowledge lost over the years through our systemic oppression. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. Marginalized are also at higher risk for experiencing adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, which can negatively impact their academic achievement and overall well-being. ACEs can include a range of traumatic experiences, such as abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, and community violence. Anda et al., 2006. Addressing the impact of ACEs on marginalized students is essential. Schools can implement trauma-informed practices and provide students access to supportive resources. Trauma-informed practices can be complex and should be implemented after extensive research and professional development. Schools can provide professional development to teachers and staff on trauma-informed practices. This includes training on the impact of trauma on our students, identifying trauma symptoms, and responding to trauma in a supportive and empathetic way. A study by Kitoka et al., 2013, found that providing professional development on trauma-informed practices to teachers and staff improved students' mental health outcomes. Trauma-informed practices involve creating a safe and supportive student environment and responding to their needs sensitively and compassionately. National Child Traumatic Stress Network, ND. Schools should create a safe and supportive environment that promotes positive relationships, student engagement, and social-emotional learning. This includes providing opportunities for our students to build positive relationships with educators and peers, creating a calm and predictable learning environment, and using restorative practices to address conflicts. A study by Kostelnik et al., 2016, found that creating a trauma-informed school environment improved students' social-emotional well-being and academic achievement. Schools can provide our students access to supportive resources through counseling services, mental health programs, and peer support groups. Kim and Huang, 2018. Schools can use screening and assessment tools to identify students who may have experienced trauma and need additional support. This includes using trauma-specific screening tools, such as Adverse Childhood Experiences, ACEs, questionnaire, and ongoing assessments to monitor students' mental health and academic progress. Schumacher et al., 2018, found that screening and assessment tools helped identify students who needed additional support and improve their mental health outcomes. Community and agency partnerships are integral to addressing many of our students' challenges. Schools can engage families and communities in trauma-informed practices to create a more holistic approach to supporting our students. This includes involving families in school decision-making, providing resources and support for families, and building partnerships with community organizations. Cross et al., 2018, found that engaging families and communities in trauma-informed practices improves students' social-emotional well-being and academic achievement. Additionally, schools can work with community organizations to provide wrap-around services that address the various needs of students and their families, such as housing, healthcare, and food assistance. Kim and Huang, 2018. English language learners. ELLs. English language learners, ELLs, face unique challenges that can impact their academic achievement. These challenges include limited English proficiency, difficulty understanding academic language, and cultural differences. Studies have shown that providing ELLs with language support through explicit instruction in academic English can help improve their academic achievement. Gersten et al., 2006. Support for English language learners, ELLs, is essential for ensuring our students can access academic content and succeed in school. Educators should use instructional strategies such as graphic organizers, word walls, and sentence starters to support ELLs' language development. Thompson and Bond, 2002. In addition, educators can provide ELLs with opportunities to practice their language skills, such as through small group discussions and writing assignments. Scarcella and Oxford, 1992. Schools can provide academic support beyond regular instruction to ELLs to help them succeed in their coursework. This includes providing extra support in areas where ELLs may struggle, such as reading comprehension and vocabulary development. Culturally responsive teaching can also help address the unique challenges faced by ELLs. This approach should consider ELLs' cultural backgrounds and experiences and use this knowledge to inform instruction. Some effective strategies for promoting cultural responsiveness in the classroom are utilizing bilingual materials and aids, including diverse perspectives and experiences in lesson plans, and creating space for our students to express their cultural traditions and perspectives. These approaches can help create an inclusive and supportive learning environment for all students. Creating a welcoming and inclusive environment, promoting cross-cultural understanding and respect, and providing opportunities for ELLs to share their culture and experiences are essential. Frequently, ELL students are pushed to conform to the identity of their new home and forgo their own identity. Creating an inclusive environment allows them to assimilate into their new home and be who they are. A study by Siwatu, 2016, found that creating a positive school culture improved ELL students' academic achievement. Schools can also provide additional resources to support ELLs, such as tutoring in their native language, translation services, and after-school programs. These resources can help ELLs and their families navigate the education system and support academic success. Suarez Orozco and Suarez Orozco, 2001. Many families I have spoken to throughout the years find navigating their new home's education system challenging. The partnership between home and school is critical to a child's success, and removing this barrier will undoubtedly have positive consequences. By addressing ELL's unique challenges and providing the necessary support, educators and schools can help ELLs succeed academically and improve their well-being. Sometimes, the most powerful support we can give is the simple act of listening with an open heart and an empathetic ear.